Okay, welcome back. We are going to finish Act 3, Scene 3 of Othello.
Returning.
My lord, I might entreat your honor to scan this thing no further. Leave it to time. Though it be fit that Cassio have his place, for sure he fills it up with great ability, yet if you please to hold him off a while, you shall by that perceive him and his means. Note if your lady strain his entertainment with any strong or vehement importunity. Much will be seen in that. In the meantime, let me be thought too busy in my fears, as worthy cause I have to fear I am. And hold her free, I do beseech your honor.
Fear not my government.
I once more take my leave.
Exit.
This fellow's of exceeding honesty, and knows all qualities with a learned spirit of human dealings. If I do prove her haggard, though that her jesses were my dear heartstrings, I'd whistle her off and let her down the wind to prey at fortune. Haply, for I am black, and have not those soft parts of conversation that chamberers have, or for I am declined into the vale of years. Yet that's not much. She's gone. I am abused, and my relief must be to loathe her. Oh, curse of marriage, that we can call these delicate creatures ours, and not their appetites. I had rather be a toad and live upon the vapor of a dungeon than keep a corner in the thing I love for others' uses. Yet 'tis the plague of great ones. Prerogatived are they less than the base. 'Tis destiny unshunnable like death. Even then this forked plague is fated to us when we do quicken. Desdemona comes. If she be false, oh, then heaven mocks itself. I'll not believe it.
So there's a couple of important things here in Othello's speech. First of all, he continues to really start to doubt her. She's gone, he says. And he has that line that says, "Oh, curse of marriage, that we can call these creatures ours, but not their appetites." This idea that women somehow have this appetite that can't be fulfilled by just one man, and she has to go outside of her marriage to find it. That sounds an awful lot like Iago. That's what Iago thinks about women. He does not have a high opinion of women, even though he's married. We know how he feels and how he treats his wife. But he also, Othello is really torn at this point, and he continues to be torn for really a lot of the rest of this scene. He wants to believe in Desdemona, but he feels like he should believe Iago because Iago's his ancient and they fought together, and he thinks that Iago, of course, is very loyal.
Re-enter Desdemona and Emilia.
How now, my dear Othello? Your dinner and the generous islanders by you invited do attend your presence.
I am to blame.
Why do you speak so faintly? Are you not well?
I have a pain upon my forehead here.
Faith, that's with watching. 'Twill away again. Let me but bind it hard. Within this hour it will be well.
Your napkin is too little.
He puts the handkerchief from him, and she drops it.
Let it alone. Come, I'll go in with you.
I am very sorry that you are not well.
Exeunt Othello and Desdemona.
I am glad I have found this napkin. This was her first remembrance from the moor. My wayward husband hath 100 times wooed me to steal it, but she so loves the token, for he conjured her she should ever keep it, that she reserves it evermore about her to kiss and talk to. I'll have the work ta'en out and give it Iago. What he will do with it, heaven knows, not I. I nothing but to please his fantasy.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the handkerchief. The handkerchief is one of the primary symbols in this play. It's sometimes also referred to as a napkin, but it's the same thing. So this is a handkerchief that Desdemona has that Othello gave to her, and it was one of her first gifts that he did give to her. We're going to find a little bit later on that it is white with red strawberries on it. And that's important for the reason that it symbolizes, as we will find out shortly, their marriage, her loyalty, her fidelity, their marriage bed, also her virginity. Certainly the first time they would have slept together would have been the night after their marriage, their honeymoon night. Desdemona would have been a virgin, so there would have been white sheets on the bed, and it probably would have been spotted with blood from their first encounter. So the handkerchief represents that even in the way it looks. And that is important. Again, it becomes a pretty big symbol in this play. At this point, Desdemona has actually dropped it. She's pretty concerned about Othello, and Emilia is there to pick it up. And Emilia says she takes it because Iago has asked her to steal it on multiple occasions. And one thing we find out about Emilia, she's a pretty interesting character. But one thing we find out about her, especially here, is that she really wants to please Iago, and she really wants to be loved by him. We know that's probably not going to happen, but she really does things to try to please him.
Re-enter Iago.
How now? What do you here alone?
Do not you chide. I have a thing for you.
A thing for me? It is a common thing.
Huh?
To have a foolish wife.
Oh, is that all? What will you give me now for that same handkerchief?
What handkerchief?
What handkerchief? Why, that the Moor first gave to Desdemona. That which so often you did bid me steal.
Hast stolen it from her?
No, faith, she let it drop by negligence, and to the advantage, I being here took it up. Look, here it is.
A good wench. Give it me.
What will you do with it, that you have been so earnest to have me filch it?
Snatching it.
Why, what's that to you?
If it be not for some purpose of import, give it me again. Poor lady shall run mad when she shall lack it.
Be not act known on't. I have use for it. Go, leave me.
Exit Emilia.
I will in Cassio's lodging lose this napkin, and let him find it. Trifles light as air are to the jealous confirmations strong as proofs of holy writ.
So, conveniently, now Iago has the proof that he is looking for, that Othello will be looking for, right? So Iago tells us, the audience, I'm going to lose the handkerchief in Cassio's lodgings. Because, of course, then it will be clear that Desdemona and Cassio have something going on. And it's interesting that he uses the word trifle, right? Something very little, something very small. Trifles light as air are to the jealous very strong confirmations. So on any other day, the handkerchief might not mean anything. But to someone who is jealous, of course, it's going to mean a great deal.
This may do something. The war already changes with my poison. Dangerous conceits are in their natures poisons, which at the first are scarce found to distaste, but with a little act upon the blood, burn like the mines of sulphur. I did say so. Look where he comes. Not poppy, nor mandragora, nor all the drowsy syrups of the world shall ever medicine thee to that sweet sleep which thou owedst yesterday.
Re-enter Othello.
False to me.
Why, how now, General? No more of that.
Avaunt, begone, thou hast set me on the rack. I swear 'tis better to be much abused than but to know it a little.
How now, my lord?
What sense had I of her stolen hours of lust? I saw it not, thought it not, it harmed not me. I slept the next night well, was free and merry. I found not Cassio's kisses on her lips. He that is robbed, not wanting what is stolen, let him not know it, and he's not robbed at all.
I am sorry to hear this.
I had been happy if the general camp, pioneers and all, had tasted her sweet body, so I had nothing known.
So this is kind of an ignorance is bliss comment, right? I wouldn't have cared if she slept with every other man on the island, as long as I didn't know about it. Of course, he doesn't really mean that, but we can see how he's starting to get really passionate and really upset. He's not sleeping anymore. Before he knew, of course, he slept like a baby. Now he can't sleep at all.
Oh, now forever farewell the tranquil mind, farewell content, farewell the plumed troop and the big wars that make ambition virtue. Oh, farewell. Farewell the neighing steed and the shrill trump, the spirit-stirring drum, the ear-piercing fife, the royal banner and all quality, pride, pomp, and circumstance of glorious war. And, oh, you mortal engines, whose rude throats the immortal Jove's dead clamours counterfeit, farewell! Othello's occupation's gone.
Is't possible, my lord?
Villain, be sure thou prove my love a whore.
Taking him by the throat.
Be sure of it. Give me the ocular proof. or by the worth of man's eternal soul, thou hadst been better have been born a dog than answer my waked wrath.
Is't come to this?
Make me to see it, or at the least so prove it that the probation bear no hinge nor loop to hang a doubt on, or woe upon thy life.
So we've heard a lot of reference to this, right? The idea of, I want proof. Be sure thou prove my love a whore. Give me the ocular proof. I want something I can see.
My noble lord,
If thou dost slander her and torture me, never pray more. Abandon all remorse. On horror's head horrors accumulate. Do deeds to make heaven weep, all earth amazed. For nothing canst thou to damnation add greater than that.
oh grace! Oh heaven, defend me! Are you a man? Have you a soul or sense? God be with you. You take mine office. Oh, wretched fool that lives to make thine honesty a vice. Oh, monstrous world! Take note, take note! Oh, world, to be direct and honest is not safe. I thank you for this profit, and from thence I'll love no friend, since love breeds such offence.
Nay, stay. Thou shouldst be honest.
I should be wise, for honesty's a fool and loses that it works for.
By the world, I think my wife be honest, and think she is not. I think that thou art just, and think thou art not. I'll have some proof.
So this was one of the ideas that I had mentioned earlier in the act, the fact that Othello's becoming really torn here. He believes Desdemona is loyal, and yet he feels like he has to question her loyalty. He thinks Iago is telling the truth, and yet can Iago really be telling the truth? And we should really feel that turmoil along with the character. He's this great man. We know he's a great man in general, a wonderful speaker, a wonderful storyteller. Everyone loves him and follows him. And we see him kind of starting to crack and starting to really fumble around. And it's kind of a poignant moment in this play.
Her name that was as fresh as Dian's visage is now begrimed and black as mine own face. If there be cords or knives, poison or fire or suffocating streams, I'll not endure it. Would I were satisfied.
I see, sir, you are eaten up with passion. I do repent me that I put it to you. You would be satisfied?
Would, nay, I will.
And may. But how? How satisfied, my lord? Would you, the supervisor, grossly gape on, behold her topped?
Death and damnation, oh.
It were a tedious difficulty, I think, to bring them to that prospect. Damn them, then, if ever mortal eyes do see them bolster more than their own. What then? How then? What shall I say? Where's satisfaction? It is impossible you should see this, were they as prime as goats, as hot as monkeys, as salt as wolves in pride, and fools as gross as ignorance made drunk. But yet I say, if imputation and strong circumstances, which lead directly to the door of truth, will give you satisfaction, you may have 't.
Give me a living reason she's disloyal.
I do not like the office, but since I am entered in this cause so far, pricked to it by foolish honesty and love, I will go on. I lay with Cassio lately, and being troubled with a raging tooth, I could not sleep. There are a kind of men so loose of soul, that in their sleeps will mutter their affairs. One of this kind is Cassio. In sleep I heard him say, Sweet Desdemona, let us be wary, let us hide our loves. And then, sir, would he gripe and wring my hand, cry, Oh, sweet creature, and then kiss me hard, as if he plucked up kisses by the roots that grew upon my lips. Then laid his leg over my thigh, and sighed and kissed, and then cried, Cursed fate that gave thee to the moor.
So this, of course, is a complete story, right? This is a complete fabrication. Iago has decided to offer as proof to Othello the fact that one night when they were both in the barracks, probably, bunking right next to each other, Cassio was having a dream, and in the dream he was talking about Desdemona and talking about kissing Desdemona, and then thinking that Iago was Desdemona and kissing Iago. And all of this is completely untrue. We have no reason to believe that this happened at all. But Iago's a great storyteller, right? There are other storytellers in this play, but Iago certainly is one of the masters.
Oh, monstrous, monstrous.
Nay, this was but his dream.
But this denoted a foregone conclusion. 'Tis a shrewd doubt, though it be but a dream.
And this may help to thicken other proofs that do demonstrate thinly.
I'll tear her all to pieces.
And that's a terrible moment, right? Because we've seen Othello kind of leading up to this. We see him become upset, we see him doubt her, but all of a sudden he is really turning violent, and he says to Desdemona, I'll tear her all to pieces, not to Desdemona. He says about Desdemona that he wants to tear her apart. And that's a horrible moment. And yet we see, right, that really fine edge of passion. He's passionate in love, but he is also very passionate in his anger. And that's a problem.
Nay, but be wise. Yet we see nothing done. She may be honest, yet. Tell me this. Have you not sometimes seen a handkerchief spotted with strawberries in your wife's hand?
I gave her such a one. 'Twas my first gift.
I know not that. But such a handkerchief, I'm sure it was your wife's. Did I today see Cassio wipe his beard with?
If it be that.
If it be that, or any that was hers, it speaks against her with the other proofs.
Oh, that the slave had 40,000 lives. One is too poor, too weak for my revenge. Now do I see 'tis true. Look here, Iago. All my fond love thus do I blow to heaven. 'Tis gone. Arise, black vengeance, from thy hollow cell. Yield up, O love, thy crown and hearted throne to tyrannous hate. Swell, bosom, with thy fraught, for 'tis of aspects tongues.
Yet be content.
Oh, blood, blood, blood.
Patience, I say. Your mind, perhaps, may change.
Never, Iago, like to the Pontic Sea, whose icy current and compulsive course ne'er feels retiring ebb, but keeps due on to the Propontic and the Hellespont, even so my bloody thoughts with violent pace shall ne'er look back, ne'er ebb to humble love, till that a capable and wide revenge swallow them up. Now, by yond marble heaven, in the due reverence of a sacred vow,
Kneels.
I here engage my words.
Do not rise yet.
Kneels.
Witness, you ever-burning lights above, you elements that clip us round about. Witness that here Iago doth give up the execution of his wit, hands, heart, to wronged Othello's service.
Okay, so I want to point out here, this is a very interesting scene. And not all Shakespearean scholars agree about what's going on here. But you have both characters kneeling. And you have a reference to kind of kneeling before heaven. And you have Iago here say, I give my hands and my heart to Othello. And some people really see this as almost a marriage scene. And some people go a little bit farther to suggest that perhaps Iago has some homosexual tendencies here. We know that he does not think very much of women at all. He certainly doesn't seem to like his own wife at all. He wants to be close to Othello. Some people suggest that maybe he's not as jealous of Cassio as he's actually jealous of Desdemona. When Othello marries Desdemona, that kind of, takes Othello away from Iago. It's a really interesting theory, and if we look at some of the language and the situations in the play, it certainly is something to think about. And again, even the lines at the very, very end of this scene kind of echo that.
Let him command, and to obey shall be in me remorse. What bloody business ever.
They rise.
I greet thy love not with vain thanks, but with acceptance bounteous, and will upon the instant put thee to it. Within these 3 days let me me hear thee say that Cassio's not alive.
My friend is dead. 'Tis done at your request. But let her live.
Damn her, lewd minx, oh damn her. Come, go with me apart. I will withdraw to furnish me with some swift means of death for the fair devil. Now art thou, my lieutenant.
I am your own, forever.
Exeunt.
So there's a lot of things that happen right at the end of this scene. First of all, Othello says, I want Cassio dead. Then he says, I want Desdemona dead, which is horrifying. He says to Iago, you are my lieutenant now. And this, of course, is what we think Iago has wanted all along, right? He's wanted the lieutenant position. But there's still 2 acts left in the play, so we know something else is going to happen. And then those final lines of Iago's, I am your own forever, kind of really reinforce this idea of a marriage, an attraction, certainly a bond between these 2 men, at least at this point in the play, which just again makes it a really complex story and really complex characters. All right, we'll be back with Act 3, Scene 4.